All right, now before we wrap up this segment on lighting, I wanted to talk about one more technique, and I don't use this technique very often, but it's a really fun technique to play with underground if you've got a bunch of cavers that just need to move and walk around. That technique is light painting. Now, light painting is basically taking a continuous light source. Now, when I say continuous light source, I mean something like a headlamp or a flashlight or a lantern or something that just is continuously emitting light. That wouldn't include something like a flash because it's not continuous. It pops and it turns off. A flash bulb, you ignite it, it fires, and then it dims away. So it has to be a continuous light source. You take that source, open the shutter on your camera, and then in the scene that you framed, you can either just walk through it randomly or you can strategically take the light and paint the light. Just move it up and down over the formation or the caver or whatever. And you can do all kinds of crazy things with light painting because whatever you paint is going to show up in your shot. Whatever you don't paint is not. And if that thing moves, you can get some really funky effects. So if you have a caver stand there and you paint his face for just a second, and then he moves down, you paint it again, and you move over here and you paint it again, you could have 3 heads floating around in the shot. Or if you take a red gel over your light and you paint a little bit there, and then you take a green one, you paint a little bit over here, and try different variations, you get some really funky things occurring. Now, when it comes to exposing for light painting, it's going to take some trial and error. What I would recommend is with digital cameras nowadays, I mean, you can open the shutter, try the first light, and then when you close the shutter and you look at your shot, it's way too bright, you can either change the aperture or you can adjust the intensity of the flash or the flashlight if you can do that. If you can't, then the aperture is your control, or you can just paint it less times. So just really quick brush and then move on. So you're going to have to play with that to see what works. But the cool thing with light painting is that every shot that you get is going to be totally unique. You'll never get that shot a second time because of, all of the variables of how you move and that sort of thing. One thing that you want to watch out for when it comes to light painting is that flash, or the flashlight, the flashlight or the continuous light source appearing in the shot. Sometimes it can be really cool to see a streak kind of meandering through your shot. Other times it can be distracting when you get like a straight line here and then a little curvy thing over here and then a blop over there. That may not work so well. So in order to compensate for that, what you can do is just make sure the caver holding the flashlight or the cavers are wearing some kind of dark clothing, because that's not going to show up as much as if they're wearing a white suit or a red suit or a yellow suit. So dark clothing. And then the other thing you can do is on that light source, if you're using a flashlight, one thing that I do sometimes is take like a black tube or some black cardboard or something and form it into a tube over the light that sticks out maybe 1 or 2 or 3 inches or 4 inches. And then that kind of focuses the light, and it prevents, if you happen to move it a little bit, this direction, that the camera doesn't pick that up as well. If you turn it totally towards the camera, it's going to pick it up. But if you've got that hood on it, then that will prevent that from happening for the most part. So those are some techniques you can do. But just play with it. I mean, you'll have a blast. Your friends will have a blast. Might be a great way to end a photo shoot when everybody's kind of tired of just sitting around holding lights. Throw them a flashlight, have them turn on their headlamps, walk through, see what kind of cool things that you can do. So with that said, now let's jump over to the assignment. I'm going to go through the assignment, and then we're going to turn you loose for playing around with some of these really, really cool, fun techniques. Let's head over. All right, so quick overview. This assignment is about really just having fun with light. So I want you to go out and I want you to try exploring colored lights and light painting, pushing the limits of what is traditionally accepted as, good cave photography. Try out and explore some of these really cool things that you can do. So you may discover that sometimes it's just as important to document the feel of a cave as it is to document what it looks like. And often adding some color and funky lighting, as we talked about, can help you achieve that better than those daylight balanced or neutral lights. And plus the cool thing, like I mentioned, is that every shot's going to be totally unique, and that's awesome. All right, what you're going to master is using colored lights underground to evoke moods, different moods in your photograph, and light painting underground. Part 1. So here's the checklist. Part 1, you're going to use everything you've learned so far about lighting only go to your local big box store and look for colored gels in the form of transparent colored plastic. And that might come in the form of gift wrap, cling wrap, colored plastic bottles, or really anything else. You could always purchase gels that are designed specifically for photography, and you can do that if you're trying to neutralize your shot. But for this assignment, I mean, why spend the money when all of these other options, they work just as well? So once you have those, all you have to do is place them in front of your flash in several different ways and see what you can come up with. All right, so that's part one. Part two, once you've done that with several photographs, I want you to take some continuous light sources and play around with the light painting techniques that we talked about. And you're welcome to use those the light as it comes, or you can put gels over the lights and see what happens. Your choice, your call, whatever you want to do. But what I do want you to do is try several different variations here with the same scene before you move on to somewhere else. So play with all of the possibilities there in that single frame, just manipulating the light. See what you can do. Once you've done that, there's a reflection portion. So what I want you to think about is, did different colors and different color combinations produce different moods and effects? How would you describe those moods and effects? Next, looking at your images, if you were to reshoot, what would you do differently to make that work better? And then last of all, for this assignment, you used a lot of different color variations that in many cases probably turned out quite extreme. How would you make more subtle uses of color in the future? All right, so that's the assignment. I think you're going to have a blast with this assignment, and that's really what this one is all about. Just going out, having fun. It may turn out really crappy. It might turn out unbelievable. You never know, because every shot is going to be a totally new experiment. But as you do that, you may tap into some unknown resources that exist to you for creating some really, really evocative moods in your shots. So go out, have fun, and we'll see you in the next lesson.